Right, we are good to go. All right, so we have a Battle Mage. Oh, that's been a while. How's that? How's that feeling after the recent updates and the what is it? Double the range on your basic attack now?
Double of basically 0 is 0.
Yeah, is it still bad?
It's better than before for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely think we're still basically a warrior disguised as a mage.
Okay. Because I thought you had like a pretty big, I don't know, like a whole effect in front of you rather than just on top of you kind of thing. It's still really close?
Yeah, it used to be this really small attack.
Yeah,
now
yeah.
It's still, you can feel it's better now.
Yeah, okay.
It still leaves a bit to be desired.
Okay,
Yeah.
sure. It's not like you're an Adele or something standing like half a screen away and
no.
just like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, of course.
For sure.
Still got issues doing Golux because
Mhm.
of that. Yeah, just the range ain't quite there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but other than that, it's good fun. Yeah, been playing this class for a bit too long.
Too long? Yeah, you think so?
Yeah. I've been playing it since I think a year or two after it came out.
Okay.
Across like multiple servers. So,
You always stuck with it?
yeah, more or less. I kind of went to other things and always came back to it.
So do you still enjoy it, or is it more like a comfort pick at this point?
No, I definitely still enjoy it the most out of any class. Yeah.
Okay.
My second main Beast Tamer or something, but other than that.
Right. So you're into the somewhat support mages in general.
Yeah, usually.
Mm-hmm.
And Bishop has a few too many buttons for me to press.
Okay, yeah, they got all those extra modes now with the other skills.
Basically doubled it.
Infinity, Infinity, not enough of a motivator to give it a try. And
Infinity getting nerfed as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's still good though, right? Unreliable memory is just very strong skill.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's pretty. You need a lot of buff duration to make it match after nerf. So
yeah.
I don't think it's really a loss.
Yeah, and I think the the buff that we got to Legion, right? The extra 2 characters also really helped a lot in getting that buff duration up for the mages.
Right. That's further along the line, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I played for Destiny, the previous patch with the Explorers.
Yeah.
I played an Ice Lightning, so I got a feel for it with Infinity. It's nice. It's really strong. Yeah, my Ice Lightning was farming at areas more difficult than my Battle Mage for quite a while.
Okay.
Despite more funding, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is more fun. Yeah, I think you always look for a certain balance between how intense it is and how relaxed it is, and yeah, for some people that balance is just in a different position. Some people literally just want to be watching anime and holding down a button on the other screen and making money that way. And to some other people, that's boring as hell, and they put their head through a wall before they start doing that, and they want to be more engaged with the game.
Yeah, for sure.
Battle Mage is definitely higher up there, I would say.
Yeah, it's kind of nice with the summons, though. I feel like the summons do redonkulous damage.
Do you have to put those summons, the statues? Do they have to be in like one straight line? They can't.
No, they can be in like any configuration basically. They just can't be too close to consecutive ones. Can't be too close to each other.
But it's not like
so they flow in the trade of like 1, 2, 3, 4.
Can you build like a triangle with it?
Yeah, you can.
Oh, I
you
always
can
thought
even have them stacked like back and forth on top of each other.
Back and
So
forth.
you can put them like, yeah, you can put like one to the left of the boss, the next one to the right, and then bring another one to the left of the boss. So you can zigzag it so that the projectile just crosses the boss repeatedly.
Oh, I'll have to look into that. Yeah, I was like really noob with it, so I thought you just had to put in like one is like a straight line, and then that was pretty much it.
Yeah,
but it felt a little
and
bit
you can
depressing
hold
like
down
that.
while you press it.
Yeah, and then it automatically places them, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
I didn't find out about this until like a week ago.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it hasn't been around forever, but it's definitely been around a little bit longer than a week. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're like accidentally held down. You're like, wait, where are there 2? Oh shit.
No, I saw someone do it in Helix Clear, and then I got really confused.
You're like,
how's he getting the one on the right side?
Yeah. Where did that one come from? I remember realizing that I had a flash jump on my Demon Avenger when I was like level 190. I'm like, what the fuck? I thought I was always just gliding everywhere. Yeah.
especially with Luna Slash.
Yeah. But yeah, so you're enjoying the class still, and you are. What kind of content do you do, and what do you enjoy? And
right,
where do you want to go? I guess.
Content-wise, I enjoy most parts of the game apart from Oz. I haven't tried it yet. I enjoy grinding and I do enjoy bossing. So bossing wise, I've cleared Lomian as well as CPAP. I think theoretically I have enough damage to Helix, but I haven't gotten around to getting a clear in, so I'm just doing hard at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah. Just to get that out of the way, I think hard is the same coins as Helix.
It's fewer coins.
Fewer.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Then I should.
No chance for superior, only for reinforced.
I need to sort that out. Yeah. But other than that, yeah. So more or less just looking to progress holistically, I suppose. Grinding wise, there's not much to say. I could optimize a bit more, but it's pretty straightforward, I guess. Just kill where the spawn's good, where it suits your map, suits your class, and
so do you do all your totems, or do you do like half of them? What's the?
I've done all my totems for the past 2 months, I think.
Okay. That's a pace you think you can keep up?
Month,
yeah.
Nah, I can't keep it. I can't keep this up because school's gonna get a bit more busy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm basically going into like hibernation mode in a couple of months.
Okay.
Until probably April. So just do dailies.
Okay. Until April. Oh, okay. All the way until school year is almost over.
Yeah, more or less. School finishes for me in March. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, so I guess I just had a few questions because I've had a few things I struggle with. One is IED. Some accessory advice because I'm at a point where I've kind of run out of accessories for the meantime. And I'm looking to get the treasure jar as well as like the Kerr ring, but I don't think it solves the issue I have because I've got drop gear. I've got 5 lines of Meso as well as I think 4 lines of drop.
Yeah.
And that's all well and good. It's just I only have 1 ring with like any stat.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was just wondering at what point would it be prudent to invest in that? Because I've had a bit of a drought on accessories. And then like I guess the follow-up question to that is starring, flaming, and potential. Like how do I choose which one to do at any one point? Because I'm at 17 stars for basically everything except 1 or 2 items which are at 16. And then I think my flames aren't the best, but they're not bad. They're all roughly I think like 30 to 50 stat with 5 to 6%. Most of them are at that point.
Okay.
And then the potentials are mostly 2 line, a couple of 3 lines, and mostly 2 line potentials. So like I was wondering how you prioritize which one goes which, because at the moment I'm just saving Meso. Like I've got I think around after today about 3.6 billion, and I'm just thinking to hoard up until the next 5, 10, 15.
What's the last thing you spent on?
The last thing I spent on was the shield. The shield. I got pretty lucky on it. It wasn't that many cubes.
I'm scrolling. Shield.
Yeah, I couldn't figure out how to organize it.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's very nice.
I'm
That's probably worth it then. Yeah,
yeah.
It should be. Yeah. Too bad for the emblem, then, the 12 attack.
Yeah,
it's unfortunate.
The weapon isn't stead either.
Oh yeah, another attack line there.
Yeah.
Just add the word magic to both of them, and you're done.
Some pretty good items, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well, we could start with IED and then just tackle it one at a time.
Sounds good.
So you are pretty low on the IED now, right?
Yep.
And are you familiar? Do we need to get basic on like what how it works and the mathematics and everything, or do you understand that part?
I roughly understand that part. It's basically, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you have larger sources of IED, they contribute more. Like you want a larger lump sum of IED from any one source. Is that it?
Yeah, basically, it always takes the percentage of the source. It takes that percentage of how much you're still missing to get to 100%. So the bigger the individual source, the bigger the actual amount of IED you get from it. If you have 20% and then another 20% source, the second source of 20%, whichever one you calculate second, is going to take 20% of a smaller amount because the other source of 20% has already been activated, right? But if you take one source of 40%, it activates as if it's that first 20% source, but then just double, which is always more efficient than two smaller sources. And on top of that, usually one big sum is always more efficient than two small ones, because two small ones tend to take up two slots of something, whereas one big one only takes up one slot. So for those two reasons, it's always more, beneficial. But yeah, the way you want to see it is that every single source just takes that percentage of how much you're missing to get to 100%. So if you see yourself at 75, it means you're missing about 25. So if you add 20%, you get 5%. You go from 75 to 80.
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
You add another 20%, now you're missing 20%, now you're adding 4, you go to 84. That's basically how it works. And that's why you'll hear people say like diminishing returns, but it is still pretty efficient because PDR of bosses is at 300% and even higher on stuff like Saren and everything. So even if you're only gaining like 1% IED, it does essentially mean you're losing 3% final damage reduction on most of the impactful bosses. And it's final damage reduction towards 100%, so it's more than 3% final damage increase because you're starting with a base of lower than 100% because you're reduced, right?
Right.
So,
if that's the case, then what should I be aiming for as far as IED goes? Because I remember I popped one of those 20% IED pots, and I think I had about 80% IED without my fans.
The blue, like the blue potion, the sparkling one.
The sparkling one, the star potion.
Yeah,
and it made bossing like noticeably better.
Yeah. So you're now at the point where you
accumulate.
Yeah.
More.
You're at the point where you have a lot of damage, but and like a lot of comparatively a lot of range, but you would do better with losing some range and losing some flat damage and getting ID for it back. It would increase your damage by a lot. So mathematically, so if you're at 75, you said you got close to 80.
Yeah,
with the potion.
I think this.
Well, we talked about that, right?
Stat,
yeah.
This stat window was with fams because I've got two 15% fams. But I didn't have the fams on when I used the potion a week ago.
Okay. And
it was at 80, like low 80s, like 81, 82, if I'm not wrong.
That was with the potion without the fams?
Yeah, with the potion without the fams.
But the fams, you had two 15 IEDs, right?
Yeah.
So that should give you more than one 20% potion. So how is it higher with the 20% potion than lower down?
I have absolutely no idea. Because I remember seeing 80%, but I don't know what I had. It might have been my previous shield having IED lines.
Yeah, that's possible, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, because my equips have changed quite a lot within like the past week.
Yeah. So if you give it like a quick where the damage comes from, you're familiar with like the concept of final damage and how important that like it is to kind of redirect all of your damage towards how much final damage you're doing.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about like boost nodes, when you're talking about arcane power, and when you're bossing, when you're talking about IED, right? So if a boss has 300% PDR, you get 75% ignore. If that's all you have, and you're attacking that boss, that means that 25% of the defense is coming through 3 times, so 75%, so you're only doing a fourth of your damage when you're at 75% IED on a 300% PDR boss. If you even just add like one source of 20%, and you go from 75% to 80%, now it's only 60% reduction. So instead of doing 25% of your damage, you're doing 40% of your damage. So you've almost doubled your damage with one source of 20% IED.
Gotcha.
So that's why it's so insanely important to be way higher on IED than where you are. When you're mobbing, it's totally fine, of course, but when you're bossing, so you'll see here like the numbers that you're looking for, like 85 is like a pretty low number. This is usually advised if you're doing like 3-door CRA and stuff like that, because they have like 100%, and some of the bosses there have 100 up to 150% PDR, so it's not that important to go super high. But once you get into the later stages of the mid game, and you're starting to, basically then you're doing like CPAP and Helix, who are like at 250%, and then everything after that is at 300%, all the way until endgame stuff. Then you're getting into bosses with like 350, 380%. So then you want to be even higher, but you'll rely more on team synergy here and on availability of the stats because you'll be maxed out on a lot more things.
Right.
Typically, in your stage of the game, it would be highly advised to have at least one line, for some people even 2 lines of IED on your weapon secondary emblem somewhere, unless you already have a really big Legion, or you already have superior Gaulics, right? So people who get carried for Gaulics, and who maybe already have a big Legion because they've got like connections and stuff, they can get away with no IED. But if you have no chunk of IED in your Legion, and you have 2 familiars is still really nice, but and your class, you know, maybe inherently doesn't have that much IED.
No, we've got
you
like
don't
nothing.
have, yeah, exactly, and you don't have superior Gaulics, and you don't have any lines on your WSE. You're going to basically have to overfund all of your other pieces in your account super hard by like double the amount, or maybe even triple the amount, to get double the damage out of it, just to compensate for those lines. So it's tricky now to like tell you have to re-roll your stuff, but in like the secondary on the shield is really good. But if you had I think if you even had like 1 line of IED and absolutely nothing else on your shield before, it would probably give you more damage when you were bossing than this does, as weird as that is. But like the mathematical example I just gave you, because that was with the 20% line, right? You also have up to 40% lines. So if you have a 40% line and you're at like 75%, you're adding double that, you're going up to 85%. Well, now you're only getting 15 times 3, 45% reduction, right? So you're going from doing 25% of your damage to doing 55% of your damage with just one 40% line. So it's just insanely important that you get that IED up. And even if you're at like 75, 80, that feels like you're kind of close to like 93%, but it's actually not that close at all. So if you do like a mathematical exam, because of the diminishing returns, right? So that's why there's the calculator here, where you can kind of check, you can put all your sources in, and you can see how close you are, you can see how far you want to get. And you have this list of sources, so you can check where is a good idea to look for these sources of IED. And these are based on opportunity cost. So basically, where is it the cheapest, where are you foregoing the fewest amount of other stats in order to get value out of the IED? But your situation with I almost said situation, but the situation with IED is pretty bad at this point, pretty grave, and it is definitely very high priority to get that IED up if you are wanting to do solo bosses like Helix. You'll see a lot of you should see your damage double or triple by just reconfiguring where your IED is coming from.
Alright. So if that's the case, would retooling my Legion out of like boss damage and to ignore defense instead be better for my bossing page?
At this point, yeah, that would make a monumental difference in your damage output. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So that is one of the short-term things you can definitely do. Is like it's definitely like double check is your like IED at least at 10 in your hyperstat, so that you have that. When it comes to your Legion page, you definitely want to be prioritizing like enough crit to hit 100% crit, and then all of the IED you can do, and then critical damage after that. Like I'd say it's even way more important, right, than how much critical damage you're doing. Then you get that IED up. Even going for a third familiar possibly, because you are at the level where you can have access to more badges. Getting to a third familiar, maybe a third 15% ID familiar. And definitely working on trying to get those IED potions or those penetration potions, because basically your only alternative at this point, and it's not a bad idea, but your alternative would be to reroll your emblem, and to aim for, even at this, like temporarily, even at this point, like 1 line of magic attack, 1 line of IED. But like I said, even just 1 line of IED with absolutely nothing else would probably already make your damage like skyrocket. And I'm assuming that because you've been trying to do bosses with the lower IED, you're probably quite strong on all the other fronts. So for mobbing, you probably still won't have any problems, even if you'd lost, if you like unequipped your emblem, you'd still be able to kill at the same speed, I'm guessing.
I'm kind of carried by the class in this aspect, because my summons just do most of the work. And with a teleport and a finishing blow, usually that's enough to kill. Yeah, so and Aura Scythe already has like 50% uptime to begin with. So,
well, so one of the other options would be like to see how close you are to an arcane weapon. If you're pretty close to an arcane weapon, then there is a possibility you roll like attack and IED on that, for example. Then you can keep that temporarily until Superior Gaulics, until the Legion grows, that kind of stuff, and then re-roll out of it. That's also an option, but I don't know how close you are to that.
I've got 16 droplets, at the moment.
Okay, so it's two-thirds of the way.
That close per se, yeah. And I was just thinking, like, I'm not sure if solo arcane, like having an arcane weapon without any of the arcane accessories, is like very viable.
Wait, did you say solo arcane?
Yeah, like, because you're saying like get a weapon, right? But if I was to only have an arcane weapon, I wouldn't have a glove, I wouldn't have a shoulder or anything like that. I'm just wondering if losing the 10% boss damage from absolute upset.
Oh yeah, no, it's always worth to switch over. The base attack of the weapon is just so much higher, which means that the flame gets higher and the percentage flame also goes higher because of the higher level. And typically, like if you have like an arcane staff that's just like has like a tier 6 flame and maybe something on top of that, that's usually about equal to like a Star Forced and set bonus and 17 stars like Abzo. If you add in like Star Force, then you're basically equivalent to like a potential Abzo, and then if you add potential, then you're like way beyond it.
All right, Gunfall Arcane.
It's always a huge upgrade. Yeah.
Should be there in about 4 weeks, assuming the party stays together.
Yeah, so if you can make it work that you can do the bosses around your level, right? Maybe you can, find some tips and tricks in like the Battle Mage Discord or something on how to like cheese the boss a little bit. If you can make that work, then you can continue on with your current situation. But then if you roll the weapon and it gets IED, that could carry you over. Switch up the Legion, extra familiar. You could throw it in here like to see what that would do, right? So let's say that your current setup, this is a little bit scuffed, of course, to do it this way. But let's say that right now you're around this, right? Let's say you get a 30 on the weapon. Extra fam. And then what you talk about, like if you can get the pot going, that would be rough, right? To keep those up, because you probably don't have too many of those sparkling potions.
No, I don't. I just got one today from Lotus.
Yeah, that's pretty minor. Legion is up to, what was it up to? Was it up to 3?
4 point. Legion is at 4.4 at the moment. It'll be 4.5 tomorrow, I think.
Okay, so that's up to 21% right now. Yeah, then you're getting 87.5. And how's your link skills? Like, do you have the Lumi Explorer mages? Do you have those?
Yeah, working on Lumi on rank 2 at the moment. Once he gets rank 2, that'll be the 4.5 Legion.
Oh, and that one is rank 1 now? Or...
Yeah, it's rank 1 at the moment.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, it's just a little bit. Lumi Link is already accounted for in here. Yeah, this is like brass, but at this point, then you're looking at 37.5, so you're doing 62.5% damage versus now you're doing 25. Yeah, so that's like that would be 2.5 times your damage. Yeah.
Alright.
Yeah, I probably so if you can make this work, great. If you can't, then in the short term, if you want to carry over 4 weeks and you go for the weapon, if the weapon doesn't roll IED, I would probably just roll it on the emblem. Because even if you're only just barely starting with like Hardlux and going into Helix and stuff, that's still going to be months until that's done. And in the grand scheme of things, 2-line attack rolling back on your emblem is not going to be the most expensive thing to do. So that would be where I would look for the extra IED if you can, because this is what you're aiming for eventually, right? You want to be aiming into the low like to mid 90s at this point. It's like 93, 94 functional, right? So if you include like the Explorer mages and you include any debuffs you have, but you don't seem to have that many for IED specifically. You've got like final damage and elemental resistance once, right?
Final damage resistance.
Like the weakening aura or some shit.
Oh yeah. We've got that.
Got like the blue one and then the dark one for boss damage.
Yeah, it's minus 20% enemy defense.
Yeah.
So I think that's what's partially getting me through.
Oh yeah, exactly. That's a 20% as well. Yeah. So if you're comparing here and you know that you can reliably keep that up, then you have to add this also like weakening. You add that as a 20% source as well. If you can keep that up 100%, and it is if it has 100% uptime and you can do that in your gameplay, then you can add that here as well. But you'll have to add that after you go through all of the sources here, the visual ones, and then get into the functional sources, because that would be one of your character-specific IED skills or boss debuffs. That would be under this category here.
Yep, gotcha.
You could also probably get helped by the current event, right? By the Tobin-haired warrior and going into the IED there. I believe that goes up to 35% this event. It will be kind of expensive to max out, but that will definitely help carry you over as well. And that might be just enough to make sure that you don't need to like drop billions and billions to get the IED from other sources. So hopefully all of those sources together can get you through until you can get to the arcane weapon, and then you have more outs for the arcane weapon. You might even end up with something like a line of magic attack, a line of IED, a line of boss, like something that looks kind of horrendous, but the fact that it hits all of the things might actually give you really good value at this point, so you can use it as like a temporary potential, so you can move a bunch of other stuff around without, falling below any kind of critical mass in any other aspect.
Right. No, that's good though. Yeah, I think that really answers my question, because I wasn't planning on rerolling anything, but having all of the sources listed out is really helpful.
Yeah, exactly. Like, rerolling is definitely like a last resort kind of thing. If you can make do with all the other ones and you can get through the bosses, then that'll be the ideal scenario.
Right. I'm getting Harlock's carries, so other than that, I can clear all the bosses. And I think I'm a bit overstated for them in general. Just the IED
exactly. But the problem is that your stat is a little bit of a bad representative right now in terms of how much damage you're putting out. Because like for your stat, you're going to be relatively weak because of the IED, right? Because if your IED catches up, your stat will look exactly the same, but you can do up to 2.5 times the damage pretty quickly. And that's obviously that means that your stat right now is not as good of a representative to how strong you are. As it could be. That's why I don't really have like one number that I go for. The number that I try to aim for that is representative of how strong you are is your level, because that takes into account level difference, multipliers, and all of that. Plus, at least according to my progression grid, it takes into account these metrics in all of these categories. And if these all roughly track with the level, then I believe you can use your level as a representative of how strong you are. But of course, stat is going to be mainly used. But it's really the higher you go, the more representative it is, because I mean, you're not going to really get like 65k stat people who have like 30% IED or something like those. That's not going to happen, right? Those people are going to know where they have to get their stats and how they need to reproduce. So the higher the stat is, typically the more representative it is, and you might be one of the more extreme cases of stat bad representation this high, because typically people with this kind of IED, that can happen, but typically that doesn't really happen once you're like past 15k or something, because a lot of people just inevitably roll into some IED on a WSE. So, but you've somehow jumped past all of that.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. Yeah, but we'll just try to make the most of the current situation with the lowest amount of resources possible.
Right. All right.
Okay.
No, thanks.
And the other thing you were talking about was it drop in Meso gear?
Yeah. So if you have to look at my gear at the moment,
I see some
a single accessory that has stat on it.
So this is pretty normal. This is typically what you transition out of, like the drop and Meso combination, once you get into the situation where you are transitioning into the superior Gallic set, because that really just breaks up the boss accessory set, and hopefully by that time you've had enough time to do Commerci dailies and that kind of stuff, so you can switch into Sweetwater plus superior combination, and that gets upgraded specifically for stat, because of the stat bonus, of course, of superior, right? And because at that point you'll be able to afford 17 star, and that can be achieved only from the Sweetwater stuff and not from any of the boss accessory stuff. So typically that's like one transition that helps in that happens in one move, like into superior, into Sweetwater, and then also, if you can, transposing Dominator Pendant into Sweetwater Pendant, like that whole move that typically happens pretty simultaneously. And until then, your accessories are they're there for for drop and Meso basically, and that's kind of it.
Okay, gotcha.
So how many lines are you rocking? Because I've seen like 3 double line items, I think.
So I have 50%. I have 5 lines of Meso drop.
Yeah.
And I believe should be 4 lines of item drop. Yeah, 4 lines of item drop.
When it comes to a set like this, when you have so many doubles, basically what this means is you don't have to stop at like 5 and 4. You could go all the way to 5 and 7, right? Because with every double drop, that actually enables another accessory to like take its slot very cheaply, because it only needs 1 line. But comparatively, usually those lines are very expensive, so you can capitalize hardcore. And you were talking about like dry spell with drops and everything. This will help you a lot early on in trying to get more, like let's say more kind of treasure rings, more dominators, more primals, which are pretty heavily kind of bottlenecks early on. Especially if you're going to be moving into superior stuff, you know, you want to be able to transfer hammer stuff if you can. You want to be able to transpose Dominator Pendant to Sweetwater if you can. And especially if you want to move past 17 stars, you're going to need those kind of treasure rings to have access to easy stats, and then also to transfer into superior for, you know, double transfer and even a triple transfer into a slime ring later. So the sooner you can start getting more of those items and getting the drop rate up, that is really where the value of your accessories is right now, and not in the stat that they can give. You can worry about that once you go into superior and Sweetwater. Until now, you really just want to capitalize on getting as much drop and Meso. But yeah, if you open up slots for where drop can still be equipped, that's really good.
Okay, so just keep focusing on drop until it basically becomes a stat issue. Like where I'm not mobbing properly, bossing is not going well.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so the main thing where you want your damage to come from, right? WSE, your nodes and your symbols, right? That's what you want to be carrying your damage. And then, you know, Abso will help and CRA will help, but your accessories are really just there for drop and Meso. And just like you see your WSE potential as like one big blob of a balance between magic attack, IED, and boss, in the same way you want to see all of your potentials on your accessories as like getting as much drop and Meso combined, and then as much stat as is room for on top of that.
Okay, understood.
But yeah,
because I've been
27
really
vengeful
with Golux at the moment. I haven't got any superior drops.
That's pretty normal.
In about 2 months, getting carries.
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah, it's a dry spell for sure.
Yeah, I was
and then when
dry spell for
the Golux ring. I rolled double line Meso on like
double
my
Meso,
team.
yeah. That's
it's like a good curse, you know.
Yeah. Suffering from success
so
there.
I'm sticking with that for now.
Yeah, typically, basically means you're gonna have to get another one. It's also unfortunate that it's on a superior at like this amount of stars, because that means you're basically you're only gonna be able to like safeguard it up to 17, right? So you're not gonna be able to transfer hammer into it. Which means that it might be difficult to use it as like Meso gear also later if you're going into like Cernium or something, because you'll be missing out on quite a lot of damage from that piece.
Yeah. I think that's a problem for future me. I think I'm just trying to get the superior set, as many pieces of it to get there as possible first.
Yeah, and if you're still looking for the other drops, I mean, it might just happen that you're trying to save up coins for like the last drop. And you'll still equip it, right? Even if you're using like a 40% Meso obtain ring, because the set bonus will still overcome the potential of one item like that, so it'll still be beneficial. But you just hope that you're saving up for the, you know, for one of the drop in coins, and then you get the drop, and then you can spend it on another ring instead. That would be the hope.
I'm only at 200 Golux coins at the moment, so I think just saving up for a pendant, and then I'll consider the thing after that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think I was aiming for 1,800 coins, like 700, and then 400 for the reinforced, and I was completely dry until I was at like 1,600 coins. So like, okay, I'm supposed to be, or 1,700 coins. I was completely dry, and then in the last week, the last 3 runs, I think the third to last run, I got a earring and a belt, and then the second to last run I got a belt right after. So I ended up with one spare by the time I was done. So it's like, it can look very desperate and be like, I'm gonna be here for a year, and then, you know, 1 or 2 lucky runs and you're done. So, you know, just
normal mapling experience.
Exactly. Just keep lighting the candle in your RNG's shrine and, you know, pray hard before every run, and hopefully it'll happen one day.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess gear-wise, I'm not really fussed at the moment. I'm pretty content with where most of my gear is at. I was just wondering about the accessories, because the reinforced is both epic potential at the moment.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to manifest a superior drop, so I don't really want to tear it up to unique and whatnot. Because when I transfer, it's just gonna stay at epic anyway.
If you transfer the reinforced into the superior?
Yeah, the reinforced to the superior.
You talk about the earrings now, or?
Earrings and the belt. Both of them are reinforced.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just keeping them at epic potential because I don't really want to spend the Meso into it when I know I'm going to try and replace it.
But do you have for the earrings? Do you have a legendary earring that's giving you a drop right now?
No, I don't. Yeah, I've got a spare. I've got like 2 spare reinforced, I think. Yeah, but
because that's the one thing, right? That doesn't mean that you have access to relatively cheap extra drop rate right now that you could get into. Sometimes people already have like their DSC's earrings or whatever are that high up and go into that are already epic and, you know, in a nice flame, and then you just go up to legendary to get that drop rate line there. But yeah, I guess just stressing the general value of 5 and 4 is just there as a goal because of 9 pieces, but if you get double lines, then you always want to scale up to 5 and 5, 5 and 6, 5 and 7.
Okay. Yeah.
So that is.
So just keep looking for item drop because that accelerates getting nodes. It accelerates getting boss drops.
Nodes. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Gotcha.
But yeah, like you said, maybe not on this reinforced because of transferring, but if you have other reinforceds, you might as well.
Yeah. Could just try and get one to ledge for an item drop line.
Yep. And then roll the same as the Vengeful Reboot Ring, and then cry. Roll 27 and.
I'll give up. Yeah. Just give it to the next one.
Yep.
Do belts have item drop as well? Or?
Belts? No. There was one. I don't know. It was like a fishing belt or something that came with like 2% drop rate or some dumb shit. But that was that's been removed already. So no, that doesn't count as the accessory.
I played too many private servers, so
yeah.
I get very confused.
Yeah, no, it's just the rings, the pendants, the eye in the face, and the earring.
Okay.
Yep.
Sure.
So when you say accessories, those are the 9 pieces we made. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, understood.
Belt is kind of like, it's kind of like a bastard. It's not quite an accessory, not quite an armor. It's a little bit in between.
Yeah, it's just kind of there.
Yeah. Just giving us stats and a beautiful set bonus.
Yeah, as far as equips go, I think that's more or less it. I'm almost at Monster Park Medal. I think I'm like a week and a half out from the full thing.
Okay, yeah, that's another IED there. That's kind of nice.
Yeah. So, other than that, no big issues, I guess. Yeah. I guess the last thing that you kind of prompted, two things for equips. You mentioned the Primal Essences. Are those for crafting Meister Rings? Or?
Yes.
And where do Meister Rings fit in as far as like your progression go? Yeah,
it's a little... They're a little in between, but they're basically the same as kind of treasure rings. They have exactly the same stats, same level. So you would want to get into them. I feel like they fit into the picture before you buy the reinforced ring, because I feel like you don't want to buy that one too early, because then you might be slowing down your either you're completing your 17-star superior set, your 4 set, or they might be slowing down having backups for tapping from 20 to 21 later once you fodder 21 to 20 into it. I feel like you want to keep as many coins as possible so you can do that switch as early as possible. And Reinforced Ring really isn't that much stronger than like a Meister or than a kind of treasure. The base stats are just a little bit higher, but there's no set bonus that comes in. And they're way harder to reproduce and get past 17. And in that sense, the other ones are more desirable to do it with. So I feel like that's where they are. And the main thing that determines just when Meisters come in is whether you have the materials to craft them at all or not. I think it's totally fine for someone to have like Superior Ring, Kana Treasure Ring, Meister Ring, Event Ring as like all the way through the mid game basically as their rings. And then once you get into the late game, you'll see like, okay, do I have enough? Do you have enough coins? Do you get a slime ring drop? Do you have a lot of kind of treasure rings? You throw one kind of treasure ring all the way up to 21. If you're out of kind of treasure rings, but you have more Meisters, maybe you can get the Meister all the way up to 21. Then depending on which ones you have more backups, you make that as a secondary one to transfer into the Superior. Then depending on your Gollux coins, you might tap a Superior up to 21, or you keep it at 20. You know, that's kind of like up to you.
Yeah.
The last ring slot usually wants to be a slime ring or wants to be an Oz ring, depending on what kind of content you're doing. If you're very burst heavy, you might want to go for an Oz ring a little bit earlier than other classes. If that's the case, then you don't really need to fully upgrade for rings, because you're already going to be using, you know, when you're mobbing, you're going to be using a utility ring for the dropper Meso, and if you're bossing, you're going to be using the Oz ring. So that takes the pressure off of that fourth slot. You could just be rocking Superior Meister kind of treasure, and then in the long term work on a slime ring. I wouldn't work if you get a slime ring, even if you get one pretty early, I wouldn't invest in it too early, because it really only gets good at really high star force like 20, 21, plus with the set bonus of the Twilight Mark, and that usually doesn't come in until you're, you know, clearing Hard Lucid and Hard Will for a bit, and also sending that thing to 19 or above. So I wouldn't go too hard on the slime ring too fast, and not try to get those too smaller gains relative to how much they might cost to achieve, and work more at that point. Work more on star forcing the CRA and everything first to try to send that all the way up to 21. Because that's going to be relatively cheap and relatively risk-free because of the amount of backups you've been able to accumulate at that point.
Right. Would it be right to say that then the Meister is like a reproducible substitute for kind of treasure?
Yeah.
In the, like as far as transferring goes, and as far as like having spares goes.
Well,
So
I would almost see it.
Treasures, you're having Meisters as well.
No, that's true. I would mostly see it as a transferable kind of treasuring, because it basically is like a decomposed kind of treasuring in materials. So if you can get by on a character without really needing to make a lot of Meisters and without needing it, that means that you can just trade the materials over for another character, and then you can basically mass produce quote-unquote kind of treasurings there without needing to get all the drop rate for it. So that's also a lot of value to have.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, you still want to get that started, right? Because you could wear them both at the same time and get the double value. But yeah, no, if you can get like 10 primals or something and you only need like 2 or 3, that just means that your next character is basically getting a free 21 ring without needing to rely on a whole bunch of drop rate. So that's pretty cool.
Okay, yeah. I'm sitting on 2 at the moment, so that's a good start, I suppose. And then one of the other things I wanted to ask was, as far as the Commerci guide goes, I saw your Commerci guide, the one that has the casual versus like the late game. If you go with the late game, so I've already bought one Sweetwater Tattoo and one Monaco. If I go with the late game route, is upgrading with the furthest voyage every single time? Is there any point where you gain enough to buy like another thing, like say a pendant? Like do you profit over time slowly, or do you kind of just break even and not earn enough?
So the break even point is around yeah, so if you want to end up with like 17, 18, maybe 19 on all 3 of the pieces, and that's like the furthest you think you'll ever go, that's probably pretty near break even, unless you get unlucky and you get a few booms. Then you're already going to be under break even. At that point, it makes more sense to level up your boat. Even though your boat costs 500, when you think about it, like one pendant, I believe, is already 350. 1 day of attempting to transpose is already 100 dineros. Right. Your income, once you get the Dreadnought and just like slamming 10 Dolces and you get like 7 minutes of dailies, is 45 dineros. And then you can have CPQ on top of that. You could just make so much more in so much less time that it comes down to more like a time efficiency per day. If you know you're going to be stuck and you know you're going to eventually try to go for like 21 star because pitch boss takes forever, right?
Yeah.
Maybe not 21 anymore on the tattoo. Maybe you'll just like get that one to 19, and then from there on probably work on Twilight marks and try to see if you can get like a 21 Twilight mark. But for some people, it's like they just don't like the content at all. So instead of the monocle, they'll go for Black Bean Mark. Instead of the, they'll get like one tattoo, and then just put all of their eggs into the basket of Twilight Mark. And then for the pendant, maybe they'll just get one, transpose, and stick to 17 and kind of like sit on that. Depending on how much you hate the content, you can definitely cut some corners. But because all the other stuff that's better than this is so highly volatile and such a low chance, it makes more sense to go like the more reliable route of making, mass dineros and relying on high Star Force Sweetwater.
Right. But in that case, like, I guess there's two follow-up questions. The first is, what's the projected time frame like for going the long-term route? And the second part is 17 star like Sweetwater, 17, 18 star Sweetwater, assuming you go the short-term route, is that enough for pushing something like Black Mage?
For Black Mage, with all the existing power creep, I would just say that if everyone in a party does it, it's probably not good. But one or two people, if you're more of the support, right, as the Battle Mage, you might get away with it because people might not put as much pressure on you for bringing as much damage to the party because you bring a whole bunch of damage to the party and survivability with the shell and with the debuffs and everything. So you might get away with it. But if the whole party does it, especially if the DPSs in the party do it, then that will have like a ripple effect of, well, now everyone else has to overcompensate with a bunch of their other stuff. So
gotcha.
What would that be? As for the time frame, I'm not 100% sure. It's just one of those things that I calculated at some point, so I know that that's those are them's the maths.
Yeah.
And I just kind of do it in the background as you're working towards superior, as you're leveling, and as you're working towards the other stuff, so that by the time your CRA is 21 and your superior stuff is like transferred into 20, at that point you'll be like, okay, well now I have so many dineros, now I can start YOLO tapping the Sweetwater stuff, because now that makes sense.
Gotcha.
But on how long it is exactly, maybe someone in chat has done it recently to build up the Dreadnought. But I always think like ballpark something like 3 months. That's like what comes to my brain, but I don't know how accurate that is, so I'll take that with a with a grain of salt.
I was thinking, I thought I heard you mention once it was like a year, like offhandedly, but I don't have like any specific quoted clip or anything. So
maybe for like enough,
maybe 6 months.
Maybe if you want to have like enough dineros mathematically to get like 22 all three, that might be like that's probably going to be at least like a year, because of just because of, even if you fail like 4 times on a pendant, you're like down 1,500 dineros immediately. Like that's quite a lot of voyages.
Yeah. Okay. Nah, I just wanted to get a sense of time for that, because like I'm okay with it taking a year, I suppose, but just wanted to see if you had any idea. All right. Then I guess it's still Eclipse.
Yeah.
But how do I choose between starring, flaming, and potential?
Yeah. That's one of the things that will decide for you is whether there's an event soon. That'll be a big decision. The other thing is that
we don't have one at the moment, which is why this kind of came up.
The second thing is basically the progression grid itself again, like looking at the numbers, like looking at the values. In general, flames is just a smaller part of your damage, right? The only part where flames are really important is on your weapon. That's super important. And then if you're planning on transposing, which means that's something you do before potentialing and before the Star Forcing, right? Then the flames are also important, because that has to just be done first before you can do the other two, which are more important. So if you want to get to the important part, you have to do the lesser important thing first, which is just a little bit counterintuitive, but that's just how the system works, right? When you're transposing. But in all other situations, flaming is really something you just do gradually over time with event shops where there's nothing else you can really buy. So you go into like Eternal Flames and maybe even Powerful Flames there. Maybe if you're like drowning in Legion coins, you can buy them from the shop. Maybe you can buy them from the Ursa shop. Maybe, you just get them from boss drops, and then you just slowly work your flames up evenly, and then just roughly to these flame values that are mentioned here. And if that is a little bit hocus pocus, you can use the flame score calculator to kind of see how you get to those numbers and what those numbers really mean. So that kind of just goes on the side. So that's never like a main priority. Also because there are never like flame events, right? So you're mainly just looking for, is there a Star Force event coming? Is there any kind of cube sale coming? Cube sales. So DMTs are typically around March, July, December. That's like a rough estimate on when those usually are. And it seems that as per recently, they've made it so that the cube sales are typically about a month or a little bit more maybe, but like around a month before the actual DMT. So like around a month before that.
Right.
And that's really cube sales and stuff. I don't know, like DMTs are cool in the early and in the mid game just to get your legendary stuff. Once you're in late and end, DMTs are just kind of worthless unless you're working on bossing mules, right? Or working on alternate characters. But mainly what you're looking for is those cube sales to really like 2.5 line or 3 line your accessories first and then some of the other stuff. But that's really only something you're looking for, I would say, until you get like 21 star of most of your stuff. It's really like very early on, you need to do a little bit of everything, like a little bit of star forcing, a little bit of potential in getting those lines in, a little bit of flaming. Because it's all comparatively really close in value. As you go into the mid game, you'll get more value out of potential, specifically on your weapon secondary and emblem, and on your accessories, right? The drop and the Meso that we talked about. Once you're in the late game, it's really just all about star forcing, because everything gotten up to 17, and now that's just why you have to do all those bosses. This is why you don't want to push on some potentials. You might push on some others because of what happens. If you're going to transfer over, that means the potential does not need to get pushed. If you're going to be upgrading on the item, you can push on the potential, but you typically don't want to because you want to save up all your money and you want to work on saving up all your backups so that you can go hard on Star Force. Because it's really, like the way I see it, if you're talking about CRA, for example, like you get CRA, it's epic. It goes up to 17 stars, maybe it goes up to unique, then it goes up to 21 stars, then it goes up to legendary. That's kind of how I see it. Then it goes up to 22 probably, and then it goes up to 3-line potential. Like that's like the general step. And the main way that you can kind of keep track of that between star forcing and potential would be to use the calculators that are available and just look at the expected costs. And as weird as it is, but you can kind of use the flame score calculator then to compare the bang for your buck. Like you could see, okay, I could gain 3 stars or I could gain 6% potential. Like how does that compare? Well, you could put both of them into flame score calculator and then see, 6% stat, in the flame score calculator, maybe it's like roughly, I don't know, like 45 to 50. And if you put that into, but if you put like, I don't know what 3 stars is at that point, but that's probably like 40 attack and 30 stat. You put that into a flame score calculator, that's 140. If that costs the same amount of money, then it's like, okay, I need to just save up and wait for a Star Force event, right?
Right.
Yeah. That's not to say that sometimes, if the events are too far and few in between, it might start itching a little bit. And then usually I scratch the itch a little bit by just throwing some money at cubing, just to, to YOLO some things. Just to keep the monster at bay, but then save most of my money for when those big events come. Because the main thing is that if you don't keep all of your money available for those big star forcing events, you increase the chance of spending without upgrading.
Yeah,
and it'll just and mentally that'll be defeating. That's what makes a lot of people quit, is having spent hundreds, maybe thousands of hours at some point on making money and then going for an upgrade and then just not getting any upgrade or even getting a downgrade. That's typically straw breaking camel's back type stuff.
Yeah, and this is that critical mass I think you've mentioned before, of like having so many Mesas that you're not, like, it's statistically super improbable.
Yeah, it's almost impossible to get a downgrade. And then it comes down to how you spend. So, like, let's say there is a 5, 10, 15, and you are going to be working on your CRA, and, the expected cost of getting 121 stars, I don't know, is like 12 bill or something, I don't know, and you have exactly 12, then I wouldn't try to go for 12 on one item. I would try to first get all the CRA up to 19 first, because then with that 12 bill, that's pretty much guaranteed. And then if the one doesn't go from 19 to 21, maybe it goes back down to 17 or gets stuck at 18 or something, at least you went from 17, 17, 17 to 18, 19, 19, which is a bigger gain than going from one item from 17 to 21 and then being broke. because you go 5 stars instead of 4 stars, right? So it'll still be more because it's compounding, and you never want to make an more expensive upgrade than when a cheaper, more realistic, higher chance one is available. Like going from 17 to 18 is always more expensive than going from 16 to 17. Going from 19 to 20 is always more expensive than going from 18 to 19, right? The only weird exception is that 20 to 21 is technically cheaper than going from 19 to 20 because you can't fall down below 20 once you're there because it's a safe spot. So that's why usually the intervals are like getting up to 17, then getting up to 19, then getting up to 21. You know, and then you probably want like 80+% of your gear to be at 21 before you go up to 22. Like the only thing that's not at 21 yet is probably going to be your arcane stuff at that point.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. Okay, then. As far as that goes, I think I'm pretty clear.
Pretty clear?
Yeah, I'm pretty clear.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess eventually, I don't know how far away it'll be, but I think my goal is to try and clear Black Mage. Is there anything specifically that I should prepare, I guess? Other than a pair of hands and...
Yeah, get your hands ready. There's definitely some videos to watch. There's like a big Black Mage guide under !Black Mage in the chat. A lot of it just in the beginning comes down to knowing which skill give which color curse. That's the most important thing to know. Because there's just a lot of stuff going on at the same time. Too much, honestly. And what you'll have to try to do is know which things are just safe to get hit by and just completely ignore those, and know which things are actually danger, high alert, and prioritize just dodging those and starting there. And as that gets, you know, becomes like second nature and almost becomes like a subconscious thing where you dodge those things, then you can start getting more fancy and dodging even more and taking more risks. But it is in general the slowest learning process of all the bosses, just because there's so much stuff going on.
Right. Okay, no worries.
Yeah, the main thing will be for the long term, like the big potions that you talked about, right? Like the sparkling potions and stuff. In the past, you had to start doing Varishilla and then the other Tenebra's bosses as early as possible, so you could start making the keys. That's now not as important anymore, of course, because you have practice mode, so that's good. That's yeah, that allows you. You still want to build up those keys, right? You still need to be clearing Varishilla and the other guys, but you'll be able to build up those keys very easily, and you'll have yeah, because you don't need the keys to get into practice mode. So practice mode will also help you a lot, just trying out different strategies. The main thing when you're looking at like party composition when it comes to Black Mage is seeing, are you going to make like a 2-minute burst party, a 3-minute, a 4-minute? Maybe by that time most of the 4-minute classes are going to be gone, so it's probably just like 2 or 3, right?
Yeah, heroes getting changed.
Yeah, and Arc and some of the other Demon Slayers, like most of the 4-minute stuff is going away. So it's going to be a matter of like who do you end up with and how does the party function, you know, and like what does the party need to do. Basically, like the next level stuff when you're doing hard will, for example, is like how do you divide up your damage between the tests so you can reliably make all the tests without overkilling and people being like stuck with a whole bunch of bursts left and no more HP bar to hit, and then the next bar you miss out on because you bursted too hard the one previous to it, right? That's more, right. Once you're like 2, 3, 4 runs in, you start thinking more about that and being like, okay, this is like really desynced, we need to do this differently. But you'll see that as you go.
Okay. Yeah, that's actually all I really had to ask, honestly. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah,
really
that's
helpful.
it. All the other stuff is clear. Like I see you have Matrix, your follow-up for familiars, that's all clear. How are you going to be scaling up? I see you're already making some uniques, or at least one unique.
I made one just for the hell of it.
You're making mostly epic otherwise? Or?
Yeah, basically all epics.
Yeah, I think the badges is probably a good idea to get that 3rd slot available. Yeah, open up for, see if you can get a 3rd IED, because it'll just be super valuable for you. Right.
Wait. I I guess this is a question. When is a good time to start pause?
Yeah, so I have that on the dailies command basically to start thinking about that. I think around level 250s. Basically, this is when people kind of start leveling a lot slower, kind of hit that wall, and maybe not feeling like just like going hard grinding as much anymore. And a lot of people also kind of like take a break as they're settling into like doing hard lucid and hard will and really practicing those bosses very well. And I think that opens up a bit of time to do something that is like kind of grindy, but not in the same way as training is. Tower of Oz. Yeah, I got it here at 250 plus, yeah. Because this is also where your burst damage and stuff like that becomes really, really important if you're a burst class and you really want to be looking at those rings. But if you're more of a DPM, more of a support, it might not be as important. So I would specifically, probably specifically ask, like, if you have like the Battle Mage Discord or something like where do you guys start looking for this? Or it might be as a placeholder, like let's say that you actually get pretty unlucky and you're still waiting on the, you're still waiting on the Golex coins, you don't see a slime ring, you don't have like an event ring with a whole lot of damage, but you want to fill that slot. Tower of Oz ring, if it's content that you end up enjoying, it could be something that you, if you get lucky there, that you basically get a free ring out of that, so that can save you a whole bunch of money for quite a while. And you can invest that money into other stuff like just start forcing your CRA a little bit faster.
Okay, yep. That's really clear. Yeah, that's about all I had. Thanks so much for answering my questions.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, if I scroll through everything, I guess the only thing I see is that there's definitely still some room for better flames, right? But yeah, like we said, that's just something that goes on the side. You just like slowly bring them up one at a time, but you know where the flame score stuff is, and you know how to calculate that, right?
Yeah.
Because I think right now, I think your cape and your your hat? Yeah, and your hat are when it comes to flames are very low, right?
Yeah, those two are suffering a bit.
Yeah, well that's fine. Like, I mean, you almost don't want to run out of stuff to flame, because when you do and then you get flames, it's like, well now, I just have to like, fucking throw them at the moon. It's not really.
Yeah, I'm just throwing them at the hat and the cape at the moment.
Yeah.
Everything else is not great, but it's not bad either.
No, it's
like,
it's past
+%.
Yeah, exactly. It's past that point where you can make super brain dead easy gains. Hopefully by that time you get. Do you have a second Dominator as a backup?
No, I don't.
Okay. Well, hopefully you get a
every day.
Yeah, I mean that's all you can do, right? Like get as much drop rate and kill it every day. But yeah, hopefully by the time the flame on those two items is better, you can get another Dominator, and then you can just focus on that until the Arcane Weapon comes, and then you can focus on that one, right? Those are the high priorities.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Sure.
Cool. Yeah. Other than that, I don't see any crazy stuff. No. Well, remember the heart has an easy time rolling high stats, so if you're ever going to go for like 2.5 line stuff, always prioritize the heart before anything else, before the accessories even.
Yeah. I think that's my next cubing. Yeah, it's the one with the most to gain from cubing at the moment, I think.
Well,
apart from the IED lines.
Yeah, exactly. Like technically IED is so far beyond it, but if you can get enough IED from other sources, then you can kind of skip that step. So hopefully you can get enough IED.
I enjoy the Legion. So
okay.
Shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, if you can get to 6K, then that 40% chunk will be massive. Yeah.
6K end of the month.
Yeah, and your range won't go up, your stat won't go up, but your damage output and how quickly you can kill bosses will tremendously improve. Yeah.
What would really improve is if Damien stops flying.
If you stop what?
Stops flying.
Oh yeah. For you that's just out of reach, I think, right?
I can teleport up there and get like a couple of hits, and then teleport away from the debris. Yeah, I'm tempted to Terraburn a jet just so I can fly up there and just slap him while he's charging.
Or if the barrier was can you jump bind? Because that is possible, right?
Is Erdor bind? Can you use it in the air?
I don't know. Chat, can you? I think you can now because it's an AOE, right? Or I think before you definitely had to stand on the ground. I think you can now. Always give it a
It's
try,
AoE,
right?
but I don't know if it reaches that high. Yeah.
Oh yeah, people in chat said you can, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, jump bind, get him out of the air, do a bunch of damage to him.
Gotcha.
Or if your barrier was just like way bigger vertically, then you could just tank the Cheetos, right?
Oh no, I don't think you can tank the Cheetos. There's too many.
Oh, damn, unfortunate.
I would hit like one. I'd probably survive it, even if it was like on the ground. But then I would go straight into another one and just die.
Yeah, they're 90% damage without the shield, so you can tank one, but then you're really low.
Yeah.
Definitely can't jump through all of them. I do it on my DA, but only in Revenant. You just tank them all.
Right. Because you can't die in Revenant.
You can't die to damage. Yeah, your damage can your HP can go below 1, but you can still. And that's really stupid, because if like Damien hits you with a bunch of things, you want to get tank it, right? Because you take more damage, you deal more spikes. But a lot of the attacks also gives you brand stacks, and if you get to 7 brand stacks, you still die to that, because it's not to damage. It's like a different game mechanic. So you want to get hit, but you also don't want to get hit at the same time. So it's an interesting boss fight.
Yeah, playing my DA for the Link skill really confused me. I could not figure out what Revenant did for the life of me.
Yeah, it's just your screen turns red, right? That's one of the things it does. Yeah.
Screen go red. Demon Slayer don't die.
Yeah.
And suddenly it runs out and you die. Like. Okay.
Yeah, and then when it's over, you take a lot more self damage, and your HP gets really dangerously low. Yeah. It's an interesting class.
Hopefully it gets better with the new patch. I hear it's.
Well, I mean, it's a lot better now, yeah, than it was. Like Destiny and the previous patch made it just an actual class now. Before that, it was really weird because the skills wouldn't really synergize with each other. They would just be working against each other. But the worst thing about essentially, like our 5th job was just getting access to decent skills. That was our big like speed infusion, sharp eyes, hyper body, holy symbol. Like those things together was our 5th job basically. Which is sad to say the least. Yeah. But now the main difference is how the frenzy deals its damage, right, and AoE around you instead of just like random spots on the ground, and that it's a half a second toggle now that you could just go in and out and heal in between, rather than a 2-minute cooldown toggle, because it just made it so useless, because you go down in HP one time and then you basically just have to get out of it or die. And then you have to wait 2 minutes before you can get back in. So,
Nexon loves his brother a bit more.
A little bit, yeah. Just nothing but net for like 3 years in that class. It's kind of ridiculous. Yeah.
Hey,
yeah.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, no worries. Good luck with everything, and yeah, I'll upload it to YouTube and everything. You can watch it back if you want to. And yeah, I'll see you in chat.
How do you?
Okay, have a good one.
Yep, you too.
Bye. Cool. All right. Hopefully that was a informational session for you guys as well. We didn't go too hard into the basics and into the maths of too much stuff. A little bit on the IED, right, to try to emphasize the value. So just to reiterate that, if you're seeing 75% IED, it might seem really close to 85, and that might seem really close to 90. So I might think that you're doing really well, but at that point, your stat becomes a bad number to look at, because you're not really doing 24k stat damage. You're more doing like, I don't know, more like 16 or 17k stat damage, right? The importance of the progression grid is not just like, oh, big number go better. It's one of the biggest importance is how do the numbers compare to each other, so that you know where you spend your time is an efficient way of increasing your damage, right? So hopefully that was made very clear with this session on why these numbers exist and why they are where they are. And hopefully that helps you guys double check maybe with your account and see, ooh, maybe I should spend a little bit more time here, maybe a little bit more time there. As always, if you guys want to win one of these sessions as well, one-on-one, then you can leave a comment in the description of the YouTube video saying that you would like to win. Please include your Discord name so I can reach out. And if you want to not wait a whole month before you're one of the 2 lucky winners that gets drawn, you can also request a session directly, either through direct donation or with channel points in the Twitch stream if you are a subscriber over there. I stream every day over on Twitch, so make sure you check it out there. And maybe I'll see you there when I'm live. Or I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching, and see you there.